I was wondering what led you into songwriting. I know that you're from Southern California originally. Is that correct?
Yes, Pasadena.
And
Yeah, I was very fortunate to grow up in a suburb of LA at a time that I did, because if you've ever seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or uh, a year or so ago, there was some specials out about Laurel Canyon in the 60s.
yeah,
And all of that was right in front of me. I was a little bit young for the first wave of Laurel Canyon, which was, the Monkees, Frank Zappa,
yeah.
Mama Cass, Buffalo Springfield. And if you haven't seen those specials on Laurel Canyon, it's highly recommended. But I was around it. And uh, my first songwriting, actually, I started as a classical pianist, and I used to play on a radio station in Pasadena called KPPC, which ended up becoming the first underground FM station. Before that station came out, it was all the DJs would talk really fast and they talk over the music. And KPPC was the first station to go, like Country Joe and the Fish would play, and after it's over, they'd go like, "Wow, that was Country Joe." So
That's
I knew where that
awesome.
station was, and I would go up there and make a pest out of myself and sort of help out filing records and everything. But my first songwriting was, they had a contest on KHJ, uh, write a poem, and the Buffalo Springfield, which was a big band back then,
Yeah.
would record your poem to music and put it on their record. And
That's
I
amazing.
turned in a bunch of poems. I was like 12 years old, and I was picked as one of the finalists. And of course, I didn't tell my parents any of this. And I went off to camp, and they got the contract, and it was from RKO General Productions. And I think they thought, I'd done something bad and it was
RKO.
child care services or something. They just put it aside. And when I got home, I went, no, 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 that's a contract. And it was too late. So I was ineligible to win.
Oh,
But a girl did win, and she wrote a song called "The Hour of Not Quite Rain," and or a poem, and they did put it to music, and they did put it on their classic record last time around. So who knows,
so
but
they
that
stuck
that
to it.
sort of gave me the bug, you know.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome. They stuck. Well, that's incredible for a band like them at that point in time for them to stick to it and say,
right.
"Yeah, we're going to pick somebody, and it's going on the record." Wow, what a big deal.
So the next thing that happened was I started thinking I could write songs, and uh, so I wrote some songs. And again, I'm like, by this time I'm like 13 years old. So the advantage of living near LA, I called up a record company, which was Reprise Records,
Okay.
and I just said, "Can I have a record deal?" And this is how different the world was then. And they had that was Frank Sinatra's record company, and they
Yeah.
had Van Morrison. I forget all the. They had a lot of. Randy Newman was part of that whole
Oh,
thing,
wow.
but they said, "Come down and audition on Tuesday." That's how life was back then. So I didn't have a car. Couldn't drive, and I couldn't tell my parents that I was going to cut school. So my older brother had a friend with a car, so I taught him these songs, and we cut school, and we went down there at like 9 in the morning. We were first in line, and we played our songs, and they offered us a record deal on the
No
spot.
kidding. That's awesome.
And the only problem was I hadn't told my parents any of this, right? So I had to tell my parents that I cut school and got a record deal.
Yeah.
And they were not happy about it. They're teachers. I was in a lot of trouble. And I begged and pleaded with them to at least go in and talk to these people. So they go in and they're talking to the heads of Reprise Records. And they said, "Oh, your son, this and that, blah, blah." And they said, "No way in hell. This is not going to happen." But they agreed to let me sign a publishing deal. So I signed a publishing deal with this company called Edwin H. Morris Music. And I would cut school every day. And I would take the bus into Hollywood, and I would go past, by this time it was 1969, and I'd go past the Manson girls. It would be in front of the courthouse, and they had their little,
Wow.
Nazi things cut. And I'd sit there and talk with them. I mean, this is once upon a time in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
And I would go there, and the guy that wanted to sign me at Reprise Records was fired. So these people at the publishing company, they didn't know what to do with me. They thought, we only signed him because they liked him. They didn't like me at all. But they noticed that I could play the piano, so they started hiring me to play on their demos just
Very
to keep
cool.
me out of trouble. They'd sit there at the office. And through that, I became a studio musician. And that was really when I broke through in LA. And I worked for Motown and, uh, you know, uh, a lot of pop records starting in the early 70s.
To be a fly on the wall with some of the things that you sat in on in sessions, I just,
Oh, yeah.
wow,